And gentlemen, good afternoon. Welcome aboard, and it's indeed a pleasure to catch up with all of you. And it's a sobering thought, I guess, that must have crossed all your minds over the last, couple of hours when we saw this. And if I may just ask for what I would typically call your comments on what I would call the theme of this session, which is two-wheelers key to bringing down road fatalities by 2025, and brief opening comments, and then we could have a nice revealing discussion. Ramashankar Pandey, from a start with you. What are your thoughts on this? The truth is, two-wheelers account for a substantial share of road deaths, and yet there are enormous initiatives being taken on safety. Over to you.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Gopalan. We just heard so much of technology which can save us. And I think this is what always hurts many of us from the industry side, that so much we can do, but unfortunately, this technology needs a human to ride. And that's why how much, they are able to maneuver this technology or give importance to this technology is of crucial importance. As an industry, somewhere we have failed to convince masses that this machine actually can be maneuvered much better, by themselves. Forget about how the traffic rules and how the government's talking about it, but such, situation that roughly, we always talk about statistics, but if you just divide it on a daily basis, more than 400 people, 400 families not receiving their people back home every day. They start in the morning and they're not coming back. Think of those families. And roughly 190 of them are two-wheeler riders. And you can imagine the economic level of these two-wheeler riders. They are not for fancy things they are on the road, but they are for the economic activity. They are for their, earning or wealth engine, but they are on the road. So it's not a loss of life, it's loss to the family, loss to the whole country in terms of economic output. But at the same time, how close we are to the solving this problem is, if the importance is given to the scientific part of it. Unfortunately for masses, road crash is still a bad luck. You can see people, praying for it, hoping for it, sometimes superstitious about it to avoid road crash. But simple things like we just heard about the adoption of helmets, adoption of some of the safety gadgets, what they can do is missing on our roads. Forget about rash driving, forget about, in any country where you have more two-wheeler, and especially in the ASEAN country, you'll see they flow like water. I call it, forget about the lane system. They come from nowhere. And, they get involved whenever you have these crashes of roughly 190 people dying. You see that they are not by two-wheeler and two-wheeler. They're two-wheeler and some bigger vehicle. And this happens mostly, to me, what pains me is what can we do about, really getting them maneuver the machine properly. So you look at now, from the government side, we talk about regulation, we talk about enforcement, which is not there. The poor enforcement will cause with the best of the regulation, because we are regulated well now with ABS, pioneered by India, I will say. So from technology perspective, regulation perspective, there is no end. I think we are there. We don't have any, scarcity. But I think the biggest thing, how do we actually let the masses understand the scientific part of it? And I'll take it that and rest my other opinions for later. My opening remarks will be, how do we get these people, really believe in the scientific part of the whole story, that we can safeguard people by maneuvering the machine better, like we have done in our industries, in our factories, with fail-safing, with Poka Yoka. We just heard about functional safety in the designing part of it. So how can that happen on road, which is such difficult road? One of the most difficult road is our roads, where the vulnerability of the two-wheeler is pretty high. So what can we do there? I think that's my curiosity. With that, we can start the panel discussion. Mr. Gopalan, over to you.
Thank you, Rama. That's lovely listening to you. I wonder if Sandeep Bharadwaj has tuned in.
Yes, a very good morning, Mr. Murali.
Hello, Sandeep. Good to meet you.
Thank you very much for inviting me to this event.
It's a pleasure having you on board. Gentlemen, Sandeep Bharadwaj, as Mukul said, is the CEO of PMI Electromobility Solutions, but beyond that, is an avid bike rider. So he's ridden across the entire terrain of India and done some trips overseas. And one of the reasons why he's kind of given his time to participate here, to truly get a ground level eye on what's really happening. Sandeep, you did hear what Ramashankar Pandey did say about roads, and you're part of the Harley Davidson riding community, and you've seen the landscape of India the way it is. What's your own take on fatalities, the road deaths? Is it what you see?
Thank you once again for having me over here, Mr. Murali. I hope I am audible.
Yes, you are.
Yeah. I've had, this is my third bike, and possibly I would have completed around 1.2 million kilometers on my bikes.
Wow.
Across the world, across the country, and I still continue to ride. I ride every Sunday. Whenever possible, I ride long distances. All the electrical, electronic aids, etc., they still don't beat physics. They still don't beat the laws of nature. I would just, whenever I speak to a lot of two-wheeler riders, I do give them a lot of safety perspectives. The strongest bone in your body is your thigh bone. It breaks at 75 kg force. That means if a truck is coming at 2 kilometers an hour, which is carrying about 25 tons, there'll be nothing existing in your body. Whatever electrical and electronics and whatever gadgetry you may have in bikes, you still can't beat the laws of physics. You can't still beat. I have seen a lot of carelessness. Some gentlemen explained they remove the mirrors. Some gentlemen explained they wash the bikes in a very different way, leading to loss of control. My worry currently is there is the second generation and third generation. They carry their children along and they teach them all the senses of wrong driving or riding. Take shortcuts, brake. If there is nobody on the road, fly away. Bike is essentially a machine and the human being needs to coordinate very, very well. When you're going too fast, the noise levels, that is from the outside, the wind noise and the other noises, ambient noise on the roads, it can touch up to 110 decibels. It numbs your hearing. It numbs your thought process. After some time, you can't hear anything. You're temporarily deaf. So how do you protect your ears? I have seen most of the two-wheelers forget about helmets. They don't even cover their eyes. I'm not talking about the dust. The UV incidence in the country, the UV index is going up to 8 and 9. They don't even wear glasses. Now, how do you see? You can have a bike with all the electronic aids. I've got TCS, I've got ABS, I've got this, I've got dual channel ABS, but I can't see, I can't hear. You're just riding blind. And on top of it, you're being careless. I have seen people meeting with accidents in very, very close quarters. They blame everything except themselves. They still don't believe that they were the main cause of accident. The father taught the son the wrong way. The son thought it is a small commuter bike. I can go anywhere. I have seen most of the people keeping their foot on the brakes and then riding it. By the time you actually require brakes, the brakes become ineffective. Whatever electrical and electronics you may have. Simple things. And added to the fact, since Mr. Pandey, I heard him, he's very right in saying there is an ocean of bikes passing through the road. Unfortunately, in our country, might is right. The bigger the vehicle you have, the bigger of right of road it is. But the law states otherwise. In developed countries, the moment they see a bike coming through, I've ridden across the continents of US, Europe, uh, and in Australia, many other countries. Across continents, I have ridden. I've ridden solo. The first thing is they give way to a bike. Here, no. If someone comes like this, okay, might is right. I've got a bigger car. I try to push it ahead. Then the two-wheeler's carelessness. What I have analyzed out of a few accidents, most of them are not high-speed accidents. Most of them are slow-speed accidents.
Ooh.
People believe when they are riding slow, there's nothing that will harm them. And then they take a wrong right turn, a wrong left turn. And then there is something unknown that is hurtling towards you, even at a 20 kilometers an hour. If a truck is hurtling to you at 20 kilometers an hour, nobody can survive. A truck, a bus, anything. Simple equation on physics, F is equal to mass force is equal to mass into acceleration. Can the body withstand that kind of force? No. The skull cracks at 2 kilograms. The thigh bone cracks at 75 kilograms. So what survives? Nothing. The third thing, on a bike, whatever electronics you have, a human being has got 2 legs and 2 hands. The only thing that is supporting you is your legs. I mean, in case you have to come to a stop, etc., etc. People ride in chappals, people ride without any footwear, etc., etc. But please understand that even a smallest commuter bike, which weighs 75 kilos, is generating a huge amount of force, a huge amount of force. Unless and until people understand these basic sensitivities, very fundamental to riding, I think whatever electronics you put, you're still heading the wrong way. We are still going to see a lot of unfortunate accidents, people losing family members. I've lost a few friends too. The bikes were very sophisticated. They had TCS, they had ABS, they had all the control mechanisms. But when your vision gets blurred, when your skull temperature increases, there's nothing stopping you from a blackout. It's ultimately the human being which is riding the bike, whatever it may be. You may ride a very small bike, you may ride a very sophisticated bike. When you're riding in a hot atmosphere, when you're riding in a very hot atmosphere, say, for example, in some states of India, the lungs cannot take anything beyond 46 degrees centigrade. So when you're riding in a hot atmosphere at, say, 50 kilometers an hour, and a young boy is riding, the oxygen levels in your blood go down, that is end of it. You hit a blackout. You can't see anything. So there are a lot of precautions to be taken while riding a two-wheeler. So these are some of my few comments to start with, and maybe later on, Mr. Murali.
Thank you, Sandeep. Very, very sobering thought. V. Sivaramakrishnan, if I may ask you to, I mean, I'm sure you've been listening very intently to what Mr. Sandeep Bharadwaj said, all of you, in fact. What are your thoughts, and especially on the,
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Murali. I think it cannot be a better timed and I would say, better organized program today. Talking about, safety, especially road safety, given the kind of growth which we have in the kind of number of automobiles which we have in a country like India, which has about 1.3 billion people. And it's only growing. Still we talk about penetrations of automobiles per capita. We are pretty low, and we only are going to see more and more automobiles on the streets and roads. And I cannot agree with Mr. Sandeep more on what he talked about. While engineering and technologies bring about improvements, meaningful improvements in safety, automobile safety. How much these technologies can really protect when it comes to two-wheelers, especially in the parlance of two-wheelers, where if the person does not understand the basic requirements of how to manage the machine, is not appreciated and taken care of. So, I mean, I was just looking at the models of safety. So we talk about, when it comes to safety, we talk about elimination, then we talk about substitution, then engineering control, administrative control, and PPE. I mean, these are the various levels at which you kind of work on safety and try and eliminate safety. And we say that elimination is by far the most effective way, and administrative controls and PPE are, if you look at the safety models, are the least effective ways. You eliminate an hazard or you eliminate a situation which would, but when it comes to two-wheeler safety, I tend to imagine it's probably the other way around. Despite having the best of the technologies, if the guy is going to ignore the basic things of like wearing a helmet or wearing a goggles, wearing shoes and riding a bike, not overloading. If you look at, I come from the tire industry. By the way, I mean, to the house, tire, among all the components in the vehicle, tire defines the road safety, right? It's the only contact between the road and the vehicle, and it's the only thing which understands, or it is the one which transmits all the forces, all the loads onto the road, all the tractive performances which the man puts as a command into the automobile, and the automobile ultimately transfers every force of it into the tire, and the tire is one which responds to all these inputs. And we all know that tire is the most safety critical component in our perspective, and is also designed to have the highest of the safety factors. So today, if you look at it, the minimum safety factor which is followed as an industry norm is about 7. So because it is a pressure vessel, and it is being a pressure vessel, it is also in a dynamic mode, acting as a pressure vessel, and hence there is enough safety built into a tire. Despite that, we come across incidences of tire bursts, and we come across incidences of tire failures. And when investigations are done and technical analysis are done on these aspects, often, when I say often, more than 90% or 95% of the cases, it's traced back to negligence of basic maintenance or basic awareness and understanding of the person using that product or using that automobile or the tire in this case. So I tended to imagine that while we say that elimination, substitution, are the primary drivers or the most effective drivers of eliminating accidents, I tend to imagine that in this parlance of automotive, in this parlance of two-wheelers, I would say that probably education and enforcements, if I have to add a few more E's to it, education and enforcement will form a significant portion of reducing accidents. I will leave the house open to the other eminent speakers today to take this thought forward. Yeah.
Thank you, Shiva. And Shitalkumar, you must have heard the others speak. And in your own area of specialization, engineering, software, what are really your thoughts that go into this rather critical subject?
Hi, thanks. Am I audible well?
Yeah, you're coming in loud and clear.
Thanks. I think thanks Murali for coordinating this debate, and probably just I would rather start with the same line what other speakers have already mentioned. Yeah, on technology side, yeah, we have ample advances are happening. In fact, I'm quite passionate about how technologies software, hardware can kind of prevent, untoward incidences, be it crash avoidance, crash worthiness, post-crash survivability. I think all these things can be analyzed. Also, how EV, that would add one more layer of complexities for two-wheelers in terms of the safety. While EV is not going to be by itself, it's not going to be different from traditional vehicle on the riding and other conditions, but it can pose additional risk of battery fire and so on. So yeah, I like to analyze all these topics, work with OEMs, but I would go back to what all of panelists have been saying, that some of the basic safety precautions that we have not been following, I think we're putting energy on those. And one of the lowest hanging fruit, I would say, is the protection for our head and brain, the helmet. I know we can talk about a lot of things, and we should continue doing all about technology advancement, but at the same time, it's like maybe government does the initiatives like, very serious initiatives like Swachh Bharat and whatever the different social initiatives that government do. I think for helmet, even though it's legally, we are supposed to wear helmet, it's not the case everywhere. I think that's the need of the hour. While we continue to work on the technologies, maybe awareness about the basic safety is something that we should done. That's what I'd like to kind of mention for now.
Thank you, Sheetal. Gentlemen, I mean, those were absolutely incredible opening comments. But, as someone also who's been covering the industry for decades now, the reality of India, and this is what I'd like you to, I'm curious on seeing your reaction. The reality of India is it is a price-sensitive country. And when you look at particularly the entry-level segment, I mean, safety regulations are mandatory. Nobody's complaining about them. But the bottom line is every price hike is driving customers away, especially when you look at small town India, which is quite apparent in the sales. And so there's this constant argument that, life in India is very cheap. And eventually it takes some high profile deaths in cars that prompts people to say, hey, look, we need safety now. But the two-wheeler rider remains vulnerable, remains forgotten. And Ramashankar Pandey, beyond your role as MD of LR Lighting, I know you're a massive proponent and an advocate of safety. So your thoughts on this entire reality of frankly being in a country where incomes are absolutely disparate across levels, and yet mobility becomes so critical. And therefore the safety.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks so much, Mr. Gopalan. I think that's where the whole answer also lies, because we are a special country. Of course, we have huge two-wheeler population. We are not talking about the, motor riding people who are more from the hobby side, but from the necessity side. Because from a bicycle, when you just add a motor to it, you become motorcycle. I think that is where the whole progression is bottom up going. And they feel it's okay. The way they manage a cycle, they can manage a bicycle. That's where the masses are. And that's why I'm more pained that we are able to reach the mind of these masses. Today, we can talk about so many scientific things, but they're not listening to us. So somewhere we are making a mistake. And if I add more technology, and you rightly said affordability is a big question, we are going away from it rather. So I don't see that we are actually going in the right direction. I have been involved in so many of these campaigns and awareness activities. To tell you very frankly, I feel still we have not opened the heart and the mind of people to understand why these scientific things are necessary. So somewhere I feel that the enforcement, which I think Shitalkumar ji also talked about, that the enforcement and the education has to come somewhere, that enforcement, leaving it to government, is not working. And in our country, that self-enforcement is not happening because the rules are seen as any rule for that matter. And you know how good we are in following rules. So somewhere we have to get away from rules, because the moment we see that the rules are, from top-down approach, from government enforcement, on OEMs it will apply, from our company's point of view it will apply. So all the businesses can have those rules followed properly. When it comes to masses and the roads, it is open for all. So somewhere we have to get away from rules. And I think the answer again lies in technology. I fully agree with Sandeep ji that this electronic stuff will not work. But can we make a connection between some of it, which is affordable, with the masses? And that is where I'm very impressed with something called, so from today's regulate and enforce, which is not working. That means everybody is going anti-rule, anti-law. In fact, we fight on roads. How can we fool the traffic police is the best thing we can do. At least when you're in young age, you can manage and you can boast for it. I did that, I did this. So it's actually a war on the road where we are not going together. And precisely the same people can save us from this number of road deaths. The same drivers, if they just turn differently, they can. So what I am kind of advocating is moving from this regime of enforce and regulate and enforcement is not happening to something called assist and alert. Can we get into more assist and alert? Can we use the tech? Because, to ride a two-wheeler, you don't need a training. In India, we are not commercial. Only for commercial drivers, you need a training to go for driving license. And you know the license, how it is being given. So when you have millions of these drivers and such thing like, as Sandeep ji rightly explained regarding our, momentum, with such a huge moment, it's like a bullet. And two-wheeler is even more bullet because it can go in any direction. Four-wheeler, at least you can maneuver a little difficultly, but two-wheeler has it can pass like a air. So this bullet, you are giving it to somebody without a training, and he's not appreciating what damage he or she can do. I think that is where that relationship has to start, and our awareness campaign has to move a bit towards assisting and alerting, monitoring. And then I don't know how, but we can actually, as an industry, also participate in that, just like we did for the in-house production units, is to develop something like incentivizing them, something like giving, for example, celebrating Sandeep ji for whatever safety stuff he is doing as a true role model, or someone in the same small organization. How can we then make a cool factor to behave properly or to start, learning this whole skill? So this technology, using it for assisting and alerting, so that your training is happening on the go. So you may be bad for the first 1 year, but as you move to second year, third year, fourth year, the same technology, which you think is useless, is giving you certain alert, is giving you certain gamified approach of learning, and you start getting trained without really government coming into it. Because the moment all these rules comes, we are like, generally we are anti-incumbency, anti-rule. I don't know why, but can we get out of those discussions and we simply say it's life-saving protocols? Just like any life-saving protocols, we need to get onto that and then use the influencers like Sandeep ji and many of those who are real, sometimes role model for many of these riders to get into this discussion that yes, technology can. So it's not a discussion either technology or the human. It's actually a marriage of this. So can we take a bit of it and use it for assisting, alerting, learning, training the drivers? I think there is a way, because I always say, jab hum badlenge to desh badlega. When individual of us actually come one by one, but can we use technology for that? Can we start monitoring? For example, some of the SIAM members or the ACMA members in our own companies, we are doing this activity. We are monitoring through a simple driver assistance, through a simple, I'll not say ADAS to the automated level, but ADAS just for assisting. And we have seen it working, that the behavior is changing. So can we go more on behavior and use our technology in the bike itself to change that behavior? I think there's maybe some answer there, and I'm open for more and more advice from people on the panel.
Thank you, Ramashankar. Sandeep, if I may ask you, the truth is you've ridden across towns, villages, the big cities, and I did bring out the question, the reality of affordability and safety. Do you notice a sense of recklessness? Is that the reason for all these road casualties to happen? I mean, what are your own observations?
I would borrow a little from Mr. Pandey, and I would also borrow from the gentleman from TVS and from other gentlemen. I'm sorry, sir, I'm not able to know your name.
Shiva, yeah, Shiva. It's
Shiva. And the other gentleman from Ansys,
Yes,
right?
Hi.
Yeah, from Mr. Shital. See, India's population is will peak, or it is already peaking. You'll have the maximum number of youngsters. They want to open up. You cannot stop this momentum. They want bikes, they want freedom, they want everything. Now, what we need to ingrain into them that, okay, bikes are expensive, they are cheap, this is medium expensive, but your life is not cheap.
Yeah.
You can say, okay, this is affordable, this is not affordable, this technology is available, but your life isn't cheap. There's someone waiting for you at home, maybe in the future, etc. Life isn't cheap. Having said that, we need to, at workplaces also, we need to do some kind of reinforcements. Because regulation is there, how much can you regulate? Can you put 3 billion people in jail? No, we don't have that capacity. You can't put 3 billion people in jail for not wearing a helmet, not wearing a shoe, not wearing this one. Speak to them individually. Tell them how a footwear is so very important. Tell them keeping a tire in good condition is so very important. How to clean your bike, fundamentals. No bikes are to be water washed, with the pressure of 100 bar. They are always to be washed with a garden hose. People will still not listen to that. How do you tell these youngsters to stay away from, I always use this phrase rather, how do you stay away from the throttle of corruption? You can say this fellow is corrupt and that fellow is corrupt and this fellow is corrupt. I say all the two-wheelers are corrupt. You are using the throttle of corruption. How do you control the throttle of corruption? You can use it when you're free, when there's no one around. I talk to them something about a concept called island riding, where if at all an accident has to happen, it is because of you and not because of others. How important it is to wear an eye protecting device. How do you protect yourself? With all the electronics, a bike doesn't have a metal cover on the sides, on the roof, etc., etc. You are going to work with your senses and sensors created in the human body. That is the most important thing. And how do you receive this? Sensor function, and how do you ride a bike? We need to continuously tell people that their life isn't cheap. I'm just giving you a small example. In my company too, ours is not a large industry. I mean, my factory where I work, where I'm employed, is not a large factory. We just have around 800, 900 people. I've seen, when I joined this factory, I could see a lot of people not wearing helmets. And then I said, if you don't wear a helmet from today onwards, I'm not going to give you a bike parking. Park it anywhere. With great compulsion, they started, wearing helmets. There are still protests going on, etc., etc. We started informing the family. Look, your husband may not even come. I don't know. He's a careless guy. Then I started working, putting that as a part of their increments. If you have done so many violations, I note it down on the register. And then since I live in a very, very small town, we bump into employees very frequently. Buy a milk or buy something, or buy a packet of chips in a shop. We bump into employees very, very frequently, even after working hours. The moment I see him, I notice him, I take a picture of him, and then say, I'm going to hit your increment. And he's carrying his child. Well, these things have helped in a certain way, but still the casualness, because it's a small bike, the bike is very small. It's a commuter bike. So nothing will happen to me. And my life is, no one can do anything to me. But boss, your head breaks in 2 kilograms force. When you fall down on the road and when you hit the road, your skull is going to crack. And you even know about it? No, nothing will happen to me. So these kind of attitude, these kind of examples, like in a cigarette packet, They put in all kinds of dirty pictures saying that your lung will be corroded, your this will be corroded. There is mass campaigns happening. I think we should also start advertising in that way, that your skull will crack at 2 kilograms or fall at 2 kilometers, will do this activity, redo this activity, a large amount of sensitization. Enforcement will lead us nowhere. Enforcement will lead us nowhere. I have seen countries where where even riding a 1,000+ cc motorcycle, helmet is optional. Helmet is optional. But you can never see anybody without helmets. For example, I was riding from Alaska to Mexico. Mexico, there is an enforcement. Alaska, there is no enforcement. You wish to wear a helmet, you wear. You don't want to wear, that's fine. How do you take care of your eyes? How do you take care of your ears? How do you take care of your fingers? I'm just giving you a small example. I had a fall, not on a motorcycle, but I had a fall and I had hurt my thumb. I could not ride because I couldn't honk. I couldn't use the clutch. I couldn't use anything. So these kind of things need to be told to the younger generation, because India's population is exploding. We have got the maximum number of youngsters.
Sandeep,
what they do.
You're back. I'm sorry.
They would like to do what they want to do.
Yeah, bottom line. Thank you. Thanks. V. Sivaramakrishnan, as sometimes from a manufacturer's point of view, does it, there's one part of the story where, let's say in the case of tires, you make sure you have the best in terms of raising the bar on safety. But by the end of the day, there's a reality of what Sandeep and even Ramashankar Pandey said, the sense of recklessness. And so that, from your point of view, even as a stakeholder, can that be very frustrating? You've heard them talk. What do you really think is a way forward? To me, it looks as if a two-wheeler life is almost cheap. It's, yes.
Yeah, I can't agree more with Mr. Sandeep and Mr. Pandey. So I think they kind of hit the nail on the head by saying enforcement doesn't work very clearly. Education is the only way. Coaching, mentoring, education is the only way, and we are seeing signs of it in other walks of life. So we all know we have grown in this society for approximately half a century or so. I mean, on an average, all of us are in the 50s, I guess, and I think so. So, but we've seen how India is evolving when it comes to cleanliness. That's another big societal problem, right? I mean, so we were used to filth being thrown around every nook and corner of the roads, everywhere, right? In any public places. But we are visibly able to see the transformation slowly and steadily happening. We are improving it. The Swachh Bharat mission by the government of India, focus on cleanliness. So what is the underlying human behavior which is happening? It is conditioning the minds of the people to through continuous imparting information, education on the importance of that, and over time the behavior of the people modify and change. Right, today if you see children, we very clearly see them. They stop themselves from throwing any kind of filth, water bottle or anything they look for. You can closely, when you are walking around and when you are in marketplaces, you can see this behavior, and which is a very good sign, which is a fantastic sign. And I think that's where, when it comes to road safety, that's where we need to focus on. We must catch them young, as Mr. Sandeep said and Mr. Pandey said. We are a very large population, and this younger generation is going to grow and grow and grow, and we must teach the right things when it comes to safety. And one of the things which we must do as a society is reach out to these schools and colleges, catch them young, and teach them the most important aspects of road safety. and what are the things which we must do and not do, and if not, if otherwise, why shouldn't it be a part of the curriculum? Is one of the things which is coming to my mind. I mean, we talk about civics, we talk about social studies, we talk about other aspects of life, history, geography, and things like that. Why not safety, being road safety, especially knowing very well the limitations of India as an economy? We will not be able to afford to build separate lanes for two-wheelers, right? It's clearly not something which is doable in the immediate future. And definitely it is not possible to enforce everybody, because the moment you enforce, people are of that mindset that, you need to, how I can break it. I have my driver, who drives a car, so it keeps all the time. I keep shouting at him, so he doesn't wear his belt, right? So it keeps making those alarms. What he found was, he went to a shop and got that slot, and he puts it permanently. And I noticed that so one day I took my car and it wasn't honking, right? I mean, why is it? As soon as I said, then I looked at it and he had forgetfully missed it there, and that's when I recognized. These are the jugards which Indians find out as to how to circumvent any regulation or any standard enforcement or anything. So the one and the only way, I think, is catch these children and the youngsters young. Keep educating, keep enforcing. Keep emphasizing the need to be safe and what are all the safety measures which we need to do, and then back it up with technology. Then the technologies will help. Another important aspect, when it comes to technology, so I would underline that education at an younger age is the most important aspect. On the technology side, I'll just take a couple of minutes. Being a society, Indian society, which is colonial in nature. I mean, we were colonized, and we tend to ape the Western world in many aspects. And the technology and automotive technology is it's not out of this mind space. But what do? We follow those and adopt those technologies which are relevant to the developed economies, right? So high-speed stability. While it is important, but I'm not saying it is important, but is it the priority for us? This is the way I will look at it. For example, if a guy is not wearing a helmet, can I develop a technology which, without wearing a helmet, he can't start a bike?
Yeah.
Is that more relevant, or an ABS braking system, which would, I'm just trying to think aloud with you guys and put a foot for thought to this forum. Is that important? High-speed stability is important, or shutting off a mobile telephone while the guy starts. So imagine a technology where a guy's mobile telephone number has to be kind of linked with a vehicle registration number, and if that guy is going to drive the vehicle, and there is a face recognition system that recognizes the driver and connects it to the mobile telephone, and the mobile telephone signal shuts off. You cannot talk while riding a bike. Or those kind of technologies which are relevant, or technologies which are relevant for their environment, for their for the Western world's needs, are relevant to be implemented. This is something I think we as technologists, we as nation builders for the future in terms of technology, have to think about. So these are the two thoughts which come to my mind at the moment.
That's a very interesting point, Shiva, because I've had CEOs also tell me eventually technology and safety initiatives, it boils down to horses for courses. And but we will save that up for another day positively. Shitalkumar Joshi, in your business, for instance, you did mention electric briefly. Do you believe that, now this may seem a slightly contrarian or a slightly bizarre question, but do you think the cause of electric in cleaning up the air hopefully will also do its bit in safety, perhaps? Sheetal?
Yeah. No, I think it's irreversible journey. good cause that electrification of the industry. And regards to safety, I would say
You may have to adjust your audio, I think, Sheetal.
okay, 1 second.
Yeah, it's better.
Yeah,
Is,
okay.
is it
Yeah,
better?
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
better.
yeah, much better.
Okay, thanks. No, I was saying that, yeah, I think it's an irreversible journey for electric vehicle that we have started for good cause. I don't think so. EV is going to kind of fundamentally change. In fact, it adds some complexity of safety post crash, and that is what kind of is one of the area of my interest, where specifically battery pack. Even if the rider is safe, but if a battery catches fire, we have seen unfortunate incidents already. We do kind of do study, meeting the standards of SAE like 2464 of impact crash analysis, nail penetration analysis, thermal runaway analysis, how much time it will take before kind of it can catch fire in untoward incidences. So I think those kind of practices which most of OEMs are also following, while by design, I think that's going to be more of post-crash survivability could improve. Another part of specifically, it's more relevant to EV, but simultaneously EV with software-driven vehicle, which was talked a lot about it. And for that, we need to kind of have three critical aspects. One is the functional safety. That's critical, ensuring the complex electronics of today's vehicle that they are reliable, performance over the time without system failure, and if there's failure happens, what could be the consequences. So yeah, I think we do have kind of a platform that's the one-stop analysis for HARA, FTA, HAZOP, FMEA, FMEDA, all in a one single platform. So I think I'm sure such kind of things improve the safety profile of the vehicle. Cyber security, I think that was discussed in the earlier discussions. Again, with EV, along with EV by default, I think more connected vehicles are coming. And I think it's important that with connected numerous cyber attacks, the protection is there by design. And again, if modeling and analysis tools are used to ensure that electronics architecture with many connections and interfaces are impervious to cyber attacks, I think that can help getting the safe vehicles. Maybe we have not seen the cases of such kind of connected vehicle creating vulnerability to crash and all, but unless we are prepared, we'll start to see those cases as more and more vehicles are connected. And similarly, kind of, when it comes to the BMS, right now, I think it's below 48 volt ASIL-C or ASIL-D is not compulsory, but I think it could become an model-based code development with a safety in mind. I think that's also one of the industry best practices that is going to be useful to ensure the safety when it comes to EV. Now, having said all this, again, as I mentioned, that we don't take away our responsibility of bringing more and better technology. I would still stand by, because when I was reading, like, we are growing vehicle by 10% every year for two-wheelers, and highways are becoming better. I think the worst case is the accidents of deaths are kind of at the proportion. However, it was sad to know that accidents, death in two-wheelers are increasing kind of, I wouldn't say exponentially, but at a higher rate than linear. So that alarms, and maybe it's while technology needs to continue that part. And then Mr. Rama mentioned about assist and alert. But I think, as most of panelists mentioned, we have to have massive awareness campaign. I don't think so that so far awareness campaigns of helmet and all has been that massive to get into kind of ears and brains of all of us. It can be done. I think we have seen government have done certain initiatives in past which have become a kind of people's movement, if not kind of a fully 100%, but I think a lot of awareness has been generated. I think that's absolutely needed. Awareness, assist, alert, and the preventive technology. I hope that kind of reduces the numbers that we are seeing, unfortunately, today.
Yeah, I think we all subscribe to that theory. Ramashankar Pandey, this could be the last one before I take up the questions. But Ramashankar Pandey, I mean, you heard Sheetal, and one always wonders, continuing with the subject of electric, mobility, emissions, Do you believe, I mean, what I asked Sheetal, in your own way, when you study safety dynamics, do you think electric could pose its own set of new challenges in safety beyond, of course, the fires you have seen? I'm talking about while riding a two-wheeler.
Of course it will. Of course it will. But I think most important point will be that when I think everybody more or less agreed about the way to move forward, which is we are talking about the human have to be more sensitive about how they drive on the road. Now to achieve that, let's prioritize that. So I think very beautifully all of us have come to a good convergence. And I think to take that to the next level, the issue is not about, for example, Sandeep ji in his organization, or maybe in my organization, or maybe Shiva in his own organization. I think we can do in our small island. We can actually try to do this, motivating them and creating a kind of a small success in the island. I think those things are being done even today. The problem is the scale what we have and the speed what we need is unprecedented. The number of deaths and the number, in fact, the number reported is 100% lower. If you see the WHO figure is even much more, and many are not actually being recorded. So if you go to hospital, the emergency data will tell you that RTI or road traffic injury is the highest one. So the numbers are huge, which means what can we do to actually tap it on the scale what we are talking and the speed what we need. And that is where, and I'm talking to Mr. Joshi on the awareness campaign, I think you are right. Nothing less than a national movement will sort it out. Now, when we are talking about this national movement, can we manage it like the way Swachhta Abhiyan has done it, or something like, on a top-down approach? Probably I have a doubt. What may work is, how can we make it like a cool factor? Use the same mind, which is, the moment somebody is driving recklessly, he's proud of that. Can we use the pride and the proud of that on the reverse side? Can we actually turn the ball upside down and say, okay, you want to be seen as a cool, you want to be seen as a star. Why not we make the parameter different? I think that is where I'm looking at technology. We did some experiment 2 years back when Mr. Gadkari and Rajnath Singh, we started something like a challenge for safety. So make safety more like a challenge, more like a competition. And today you look at the gaming industry in our country has really grown up. So if you look at the video games are made on how fast you can do, how reckless you can drive, how early you can reach your target. If we can actually play there the technology part and use this assistant alert, starting with the schools, colleges, with these kind of competition, which is around safety. In fact, we tried once in Hela also, by giving him a better light if he's driving well, giving him a xenon or a LED light if he does better. So that is how incentivizing them, just on the mind level. So I think somewhere to get the speed and the scale, we need a lot of ideas from many of you and even outside this panel. How can we get this as a cool factor? How can we make it happen? And maybe we can use the same technology on the bike and also off on your mobile or wherever you are, to make it like a nationally, cool thing to be a safe driver. So just like, the buying parameter of a car, and you saw that research also today came up from Mobility Outlook, that we are talking about still safety is not the best factor and the highest factor, to buy what you buy in the vehicle. But I don't think that we are talking about more technology there. We are talking about how to make it as a cool factor and using the technology to make it as a cool factor, because pure awareness is dying down. Everybody knows to wear helmet, more or less. Everybody. I think nobody has this knowledge not having, but then they are not. So something is missing. That cool factor, that adoption, how do we get it? I think we have to build it like a movement. And I think as an organization, charity begins at home and we all are doing our part. But somewhere we have to use the technology to reach that highest curve of wanting to do it without loving the safety, you just can't push it down the throat of these people.
Yes,
Over to
loving safety is a good line. Sandeep, again, through your rides, the one aspect that I wanted to talk about is road infrastructure is constantly being spoken of, the kind of kilometers of roads, the new roads, the highways, etc., etc. What do you really see? Do you honestly, don't you think that has a huge bearing on road deaths and rather severe accidents? I mean, it would be ideal to have exclusive two-wheeler lanes, like you see bicycle lanes in China or even many parts of Europe. So your thoughts on that? I mean, what you have seen with your own eyes in terms of disparities in road infrastructure.
Yeah. Do bad infrastructure cause bad road infrastructure cause accidents? I think I would answer yes and no. Do we require, I would elaborate it a little later. Do we require a separate two-wheeler lane? I think I am not the right person to answer it. Do we have the money to fix it? I cannot answer that question. That's too big a question for me. Coming to road infrastructure, that's why the human-machine interface needs to work very, very synchronized. You could face bad patches, you could face good patches, you could face roads under construction, but how do you ride? How do you keep yourself safe? For example, when I have been riding to certain places in the country and outside the country, the road conditions change, the weather conditions change. I'm just giving you an example where just around the mountain, when I'm in the shadows of the shadows of the mountain, the temperature drops to around 2 degrees. When I just take a turn around, there is sweltering heat around. So just in a span of 1.5 to 3 kilometers, road conditions are pathetic. I mean, there is no road. Now, will I kill myself? Will I, as Mr. Pandey said, will I play a video game? No. I mean, I have to manage myself, I have to manage the machine, and I have to ride safe. All these accidents I have seen, at least the place where I used to stay before, during rainy seasons, potholes do crop up. Now, when it is covered with water, you don't know whether it is a pothole or you don't know whether there is the road continuity. Now, if I don't know, will I use the throttle to the maximum or will I go cautiously? The judgment still lies with the human being. Now, we are talking about most of the commuter bikes meeting with accidental deaths. These are commuter bikes. These are not sports bikes. These are not large bikes, etc., etc. If I know the road infrastructure is not good, what am I trying to show? I would still blame the human being for this. And I would keep my point to rest. I just want to add another small point. There we talked a lot about technology, etc., etc. Recently, my friend met with an accident, and we went to help him, etc., etc. We were riding together, and his legs had a cramp. So when you wear a riding pant over a jean, and then the jean was waist belt was tightened severely, I could see all the white veins, etc., etc. I said, this is not the way you ride. Even the waist belt plays a very important role. You need to keep the blood flowing in your legs. Simple things. And it was a beautiful road. He could not use his legs to press the brake pedal. So where does road safety come in? So everything needs to be understood while riding a bike. You are riding a very different machine. You are not riding a machine that is aided with electronics. If something happens, it will sustain itself. It is not going to be that way. That's about it.
Good for thought. Thank you, Sandeep. V. Sivaramakrishnan and Shitalkumar Joshi, starting with you, Shiva, of course. Your thoughts on the entire subject over the last hour and what you'd like to say as part of your closing comments.
Yeah, I think most of us all converge on one thing: is how important is the awareness and education for the people who are using the automobile. I think that point is very clear. And another thing which is very clear is in the interest of technology development and in terms of industry development and also the government. So if we look at the stakeholders like the government, from its side, they are bringing in newer regulations, which is concerning safety. From the manufacturers and the technology side, we are bringing in technologies and products which assist and which kind of enhances safety in the automobile. And what is missing, or what is probably more needs to be done, as Mr. Pandey was saying, that there is so much needs to be done, is bringing in the awareness and the education, which will kind of act as a catalyst, an important catalyst for the reaction to be complete. That means you have a safe ride, right? So and we as TVS Eurogroup, we recognize this, and we have started an initiative in our own way, which we call it the brunch and biking, where we kind of do it in every small town, every village. We reach out in small cities, everywhere. Like every weekend, we invite riders, and it starts off with a safety protocol. We tell them what are the important aspects of road safety, automobile safety, two-wheeler safety, especially, and kind of have a small event, and also recognize people who have done a safe ride, and give a small talk and do our own bit to the society. Other than being as I said, being technologically savvy, bringing in newer and newer technologies, better grip tires and all those things. So what what I would kind of leave as a message is, while every stakeholder is doing its bit in making a ride safer in the Indian roads, I think also as a part of the social cause, we must make that awareness and education of the user, also build it into our daily work life, and make the ride safer, and make him aware that what are the safety precautions he need to take while using an automobile on the Indian road.
Thank you, Shiva. Sheetal, your closing comments?
Yeah, I think very quickly, and I think that we are converging to a discussion, and probably I'll just summarize my understanding that no less than probably national level awareness campaign, and I agree to Mr. Bharadwaj that probably it's the rider behavior is the key thing. That's one, and at the same time, technology could be a parallel track, and I think I agree with Mr. Pandey about awareness and assistance. And I also like assistance and alert, I would say. And I also like one of the comment that Mr. Siva mentioned about technology. If we have about more assist and alert technology, like even basic helmet not wearing and all, I know kind of people will figure out like what your driver had done on the clip, but at least majority of people would kind of be benefiting from this alert. I think that those kind of low-hanging technologies could be useful as well while we continue to work on greater, more sophisticated technology.
Thank you. I must tell you, I was scrolling through readers' reactions just to find out. The one thing I must say is there's tremendous involvement. There are no specific questions except for one, which I'm going to, and any of you is free to answer it. But most of them have been advocating severe punishments, greater enforcement, speed limiters, which I think is a tribute to each of you in terms of how you got the viewers participate in this discussion. But there's one interesting question that's coming in. Like I said, any of you is free to take it. Why are two-wheelers designed for breakneck speed? So, so somebody is actually advocating maybe they shouldn't be designed for breakneck speed. Any takers for that? Sandeep, Shiva, Ramashankar?
If I can answer that, Mr. Murali, I think if you don't design the bike for speed, then there'll be no bike manufacturer. No one will buy it. You need to match the exuberance of the youth. They're looking at speed and sensing that the government is now opening up the speed limits across highways. Now they've made it 100 kilometers per hour. I think we will reach there. Maybe we will reach another 120 kilometers an hour could be a speed limit in a few more years.
The max speed limits, the speedometer can only be designed for 80 kilometers per hour, period. So I don't think the solution lies there, right? I mean, so, and then we will be driving ourselves to the cave. So that's not where, so we will have automobiles which are faster, definitely much more heavier. And also, it's a myth that accidents only happen at high speed. That's a myth. Very clearly, you will find that at the creep speeds, in fact, you will only fall down at creep speed. Because balancing a two-wheeler at creep speed is far more difficult than balancing a two-wheeler at cruise speed or things like that. So speed has got nothing to do with safety, honestly speaking. So it's a misnomer, or it's a myth to think that if you're driving fast, you can end up with an accident. Most important thing is, if that is the case, then every aircraft should end up with an accident, right? That's probably the fastest fastest mode of communication. I mean, mode of transportation which we have. That's not the case, right? So, and we also see that how the safety protocols and the safety, what I would say, drills are carried out in aircrafts, right? Right, starting from wearing an announcement, reinforcing it, drilling it again and again in the minds of the people, right? So if there is a pilot, he has to go through that every day, time after day. He has to go through the checklist before he kind of taxis, right? Every passenger has to comply to those 1, 2, 3, shut your mobile, wear your seat belts, do this, learn about, if there is an emergency, what are the things, stow your table, whatever, recline your seat or don't recline your seat, whatever. So that is what is important. Again, it all boils down to conditioning your mind to be aware that you are riding an automobile, you are on the roads, there is an interaction between the road, the tire, the automobile, and your mind, and hence you need to do a certain things which is right. So that is the key, and that is where we all converged upon the fact that how we bring about the much needed awareness among the people, and what we can as a society do towards it. Yeah.
So just my 2 cents on that. I think Mr. Siva took it from two-wheeler to four-wheeler. It is right. This is a normal, very reasonable question. Why don't you limit the speed? Because by limiting, you are basically having less chance, on a higher speed collision. Unfortunately, this is exactly the same way you tell to, stop putting fans in the homes because people do suicide by hanging out of fans. You need speed, but at the same time, I think I was part of this ministerial conference last in 2020 in Sweden. They talked about not speeding, but they talked about speed management. So all the technologies and all the engineering are about speed management. You need the power. Speed is exactly power. And the power, what is defined in an automobile, in an engine, how much horsepower or how much bhp you can generate. Now speed is converted by the user, and that's why the speed management has to do with the skill. So today, if you stop the speed, what happens? Your lane departure then. So if you have then you also restrict your left and right. So you start restricting the automobile. You first start the movement is in front and back. Then you start restricting how much you can turn. So you say, okay, 90-degree turn not allowed. Let's make it slow turn. Or so you can go on by that. But I think at the end of the day, the root cause is the skill of the driver. So can we talk about that skill? Can we actually start working on skill? And that is where I'm I'm a huge supporter of using the same technology of assistant alert for improving the skill of the person. So then the cycle is fully complete. Then everybody understands. You have a one-to-one discussion with the driver. It is personalized, so nobody knows he is bad or good, but he knows how bad he is or she is. And then over the time, he improves. So I think if we can take that education awareness level to a personalized one with the assistant alert, that over time, he or she start understanding the speed management, speeding will not be a problem.
Super. Gentlemen, I'm afraid we've completely run out of time, but I can't begin to tell you how absolutely engrossing it's been. Thank you to each of you for taking time off, and hopefully we'll meet again